the arousal response doesn't occur. Erection is blunted, but the actual orgasm response and ejaculation is strongly associated with the so-called sympathetic nervous system, which has nothing to do with sympathy. It has everything to do with, it's a kind of a stress response. And then it reverses to a parasympathetic response. And a hormone called prolactin increases dramatically after ejaculation in males. What does that do? That blunts dopamine release and testosterone for a very long period of time, which makes sense if pair bonding and sort of, in our species anywhere, there's this idea that then other molecules would be exchanged with partners, pair bonding, potential for raising mates, etc. Without getting into a huge discussion about that, the point is this: masturbation and pornography are potently tapping into the dopamine system and can undermine the very processes of which I consider healthy processes of finding a mate, dating, communication, eventually, if it's appropriate, sexual interaction,
etc.
etc.
Like it's undermining pair bonding.
And pair bonding.
So okay, here's a question: if you're seeking sexual release through pornography and you go through the whole cycle and you get a prolactin release, bond with yourself.
So this is very interesting. The biology explains it as what's left there is a kind of an open loop, a kind of an emptiness. Right? Because bonding with the self is a complicated notion. I mean, there's a healthy version of that, of course, loving oneself and self-referencing. And again, this is more your domain than mine in terms of what a healthy self-relation is. But in the absence of a real partner there, absence of real sexual partner, there's an open loop of neurochemicals, including oxytocin and prolactin. The dopamine, remember, dopamine goes up during pursuit, anticipation, then peaks and then crashes below baseline after orgasm and ejaculation. So this kind of low that people fear is putting them into an amotivated state. We can think of this, if I were to kind of expand on it, would be, it's this kind of neurochemical, psychological equivalent of making your home environment filthy for a while, not actually putting you into this positive amplification of dopamine. So it depletes the dopamine system. And it's likewise in drugs of abuse and addiction, it eventually depletes the dopamine system. Initially, there's a huge dopamine surge with drugs of abuse like methamphetamine and cocaine. But over time, people are using more and more to achieve what is not such a great high. You even see this a little bit with kind of consumption of energy drinks. Like people are taking more and more chemicals within their energy drinks, and they're thinking about loud, fast music, energy drinks. It's kind of stacking of dopaminergic tools. Now, that's not as pathologic. In fact, there are some energy drinks I'll occasionally drink, and I enjoy them. I don't think we need to be entirely afraid of pursuing or engaging in things that release dopamine. Obviously, healthy sexual behavior, food that we love, social engagement, all of these things can be dopaminergic. It's the big peaks in dopamine that are not associated with any prior effort or organization of self that are particularly dangerous for the human being.
Yeah, well, you could see that's a cardinal danger of affluence. Then
that's right. This is why the children of
right?
That's right.
You cannot get rats addicted to cocaine if they live in their natural environments.
Is that right?
You can only get rats addicted to cocaine if they're isolated rats in a cage. Yeah, they won't bar press for cocaine in a natural environment, and it's because they have alternative sources of dopaminergic gratification.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, the children of very wealthy people who are overindulged. I've seen that many times, many times, and it is a very sad sight.
Well, they're not optimally deprived, eh? And that issue of optimal deprivation, that's a killer issue for an affluent society. We're going to have to stop because it's been more than an hour and a half, and I don't want to stop because there were a bunch of things I wanted to talk to you about. And I should let everybody know who's listening. If you go to Dr. Huberman's podcast, you can hear him discuss some of these things. We were going to talk about dreams, sleep, rest, and learning, because we didn't talk about the relationship between dreams and learning and reinforcement, which I'd love to talk to you about. We didn't talk about fasting. We didn't talk about physical health, aging, and how to ameliorate it. We didn't talk about salt. We didn't talk about flexibility, and we didn't talk about gratitude. So I would say we should probably do a podcast at some point. I would also tell everyone who's watching and listening that Dr. Huberman invited me onto his podcast. And so some of these things we can discuss when that happens, because I would like to have that happen.
I look forward to that.
I would also like to, it'd be good. We obviously have lots to talk about. I would also tell people, I'm going to do another half an hour with Dr. Huberman on the Daily Wire Plus platform. I use that time to get a little bit, people's success stories, I suppose. I think it's very useful for young people in particular to get exposed to individuals who've carved out success, at least in some domains of their life, and to find out what the story pathways are, let's say, the autobiographical pathways that facilitate that kind of success. Hello, everyone. I would encourage you to continue listening to my conversation with my guest on dailywireplus.com.